Peter Parker is terrible at hiding his secret identity as Spider-Man, but how and when did each character from the comics and movies find out? The very Marvel named Otto Octavius, Betty Brant, and J. Jonah, Jimmy, Jason, Jackson, Jordan, Jasmine, Julian, Josephine, Jessica Jameson Jr. were technically the first to learn that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, plus this police officer in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 12. However, none of them believed he was the real Spider-Man because his powers weren't working due to Pete having a cold. The reveal comes about when Otto kidnaps Betty Brant as bait to lure Spider-Man to him, which he does, but because his illness has drained his powers, Peter loses the fight to Doc Ock, who uses this opportunity to unmask him. They then all make the assumption that Peter must have just been posing as Spider-Man to save his girlfriend, Betty. I guess you can also include Aunt May in this too, because when the police officer returned Peter home, he explained the situation. She officially reveals to her nephew that she knows of his dual identity life in Amazing Spider-Man 400 in one of their last moments together before she dies. Just kidding, it was an imposter. She actually learns the truth at the end of a Spider-Man comic released in 2001 when going to visit him. An interesting fact about this is that she learnt about it at the end of the issue and was set up to confront Peter about it in the next issue, but because of the real-world September 11 event, there was a special comic released in between acknowledging the incident, seeing as though a lot of Marvel stories take place in New York City. In the movies, it's hinted at that Aunt May knows in Spider-Man 2 because of this interaction with Peter.
I believe there's a hero in all of us.
Then in Spider-Man Homecoming, she discovers his secret when Peter forgets to close his door. What the f***? The movie version of Otto Octavius learns in the Spider-Man 2 movie when the title character removes his mask to convince his mentor to stop having the power of the sun in the palm of his hands. The Amazing Spider-Man issue 39 was when Norman Osborn found out after following Spider-Man, seeing him change back to Peter Parker, then attacking and capturing him. This is also the issue where the Green Goblin reveals his identity to Peter as Norman Osborn. As for the 2002 movie Norman appears in, he connects the dots when noticing the cut on Peter's arm is in the same spot as where Spider-Man was cut in an altercation between the pair they just had. Parker then figures out that the Green Goblin knows when the villain attacks the heart. Gwen Stacy, George Stacy, Harry Osborn, and Mary Jane Watson technically all find out in Amazing Spider-Man 87 when Peter reveals it to them at Gwen's birthday, not being able to keep it a secret anymore. However, like the first time he unmasked, none of them believe him, causing them all distress, so he convinces Hobie Brown to pose as Spider-Man to undo what he just did. They all do eventually find out though. It's revealed in 2016's Clone Conspiracy comic through flashback that Gwen overheard the Green Goblin referring to Spider-Man as Parker on the day that she died. While in the Amazing Spider-Man movie, Peter can't keep his secret any longer, so he just shows her.
Shut up.
Captain George Stacy finds out in the same movie after arresting Spider-Man and unmasking him to see the face of his daughter's boyfriend. As for the comics, it's only 3 issues later from when Spider-Man removed his mask in front of him. In this comic, Captain Stacy saves a kid from falling rubble, but Spider-Man isn't able to save George, who dies in his arms, but not before telling Peter to be good to his daughter. Harry Osborn officially finds out in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 135 after snooping through Peter's clothes, suspicious of his activities, where he finds his Spider-Man suit before confronting him about it in the next issue as the Green Goblin, believing he was the one who killed his father. After Harry believed Spider-Man was responsible for his father's death in the movie, he sought vengeance, made a deal with Doc Ock to bring Spider-Man to him, which he did before Osborn unmasked the Warcrawler to learn it was his best friend. Harry from the Amazing Spider-Man universe also discovers Peter's identity, this time putting 2 and 2 together after seeing Spider-Man with Peter's girlfriend, Gwen. Mary Jane Watson reveals to Peter in the Amazing Spider-Man issue 257 that she's known he's Spider-Man for a while. It's only now that she's telling him. While in the Spider-Man 2 movie, she discovers his secret after Doc Ock kidnaps her, Spider-Man shows up to the scene, takes off his mask to convince his mentor Otto to stop having the power of the sun in the palm of his hands, then because MJ is in the vicinity, sees Pete's face. Peter Parker's college professor Miles Warren used his DNA to discover that he was the alter ego of Spider-Man. This was revealed in The Amazing Spider-Man 148. As Kane Parker's Scarlet Spider and Ben Reilly are genetic clones of Peter Parker, they know the original Spider-Man is Peter Parker. As a member of the Spider Society in Across the Spider-Verse, Ben also knows that at least one of the Spider variants is Peter Parker. Peter reveals his face to Felicia Hardy's Black Cat in Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man 87 to express his love for her, but she loves Spider-Man, not the person underneath the mask, forcing him to put it back on. Despite being in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the cat burglar does not discover Peter's other alias. In Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man 107, the extremely Marvel-named Matthew Michael Murdock discovers that Peter Parker and Spider-Man are one and the same, using his enhanced senses to notice they have the same heartbeat. Daredevil reveals this knowledge to Spider-Man 3 issues later, while at the same time telling Peter his secret identity. Eddie Brock technically knew of Spider-Man's identity in his first appearance, Web of Spider-Man issue 18, where we see his arm trying to push Peter onto subway tracks. But he learns about this when bonding with Venom, giving him the symbiote's memory of its previous host, Peter Parker. Brock discovers this in the Spider-Man 3 movie when Peter is debonding with the Venom symbiote. Logan's Wolverine reveals he knows Peter as Spider-Man in 1987's Spider-Man vs. Wolverine after recognizing the two identities have the same scent. Ezekiel Sims knows because he hired detectives to uncover his identity as explained in 2001's Amazing Spider-Man issue 30. Luke Cage and Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four are aware that Peter Parker is Spider-Man in a Daredevil comic, specifically 2004's Daredevil 56. In the Amazing Spider-Man movie, Peter sets up a camera trying to get photos of the Lizard for the Daily Bugle, but after the battle goes down, the very Marvel named Kurt Connors finds the camera which is labelled with Peter Parker's name. I don't actually think Steve Rogers learns that Peter Parker is Spider-Man in the MCU, because while he might have seen his face in the Endgame battle, he never mentions Pete by name, unless he told him at Tony's funeral. Pete does love telling people. In the comics, Steve Rogers finds out when Peter's mask comes off in a battle during 2004's New Avengers issue 2. He then directly asks Parker to join the New Avengers team in the following issue. I couldn't find exactly when Tony Stark finds out, but seeing as though he and Steve were the ones who put the New Avengers team together, I'm assuming this knowledge was discussed. Captain America Civil War is the movie which Tony Stark reveals he knows who Spidey is. That's what happens when the tech guy uses tech. Tony then probably told Pepper his secret sometime around the events of Spider-Man Homecoming, seeing as though she's ready to reveal him to the world at the end of movie press conference.
Where's the kid?
When Peter and Johnny Storm are held up in a hostage situation in Spider-Man Human Torch issue 5, Peter signals to him with a web hand to help Johnny figure out who he is so they can get out of the situation. Peter's best friend in the MCU discovers his secret when he crawls on the ceiling in Homecoming, not knowing Ned is in the room, causing Lees to drop his Lego Death Star. MCU Toombs figures it out in the same movie because, well, it was pretty obvious for him to figure it out. If a New York superhero was at the Washington Monument the exact same time as the Midtown High students were there, and Peter and MJ were the only two not in the building, and one of those people is currently acting extremely suspicious around him, you can see how he came to the conclusion. Doctor Strange learns about this in the MCU when Peter just straight up tells him,
I'm Peter, by the way.
Doctor Strange.
Oh, you're using your made-up names. I'm Spider-Man then.
And when they teamed up with the Guardians of the Galaxy, even though they don't introduce themselves to each other on screen, I'm sure they did off camera, with the two Peters probably having a good laugh and bonding over their shared name. In Avengers Endgame, Peter straight up tells Carol Danvers while hugging the Infinity Gauntlet,
Hi, I'm Peter Parker.
Hey, Peter Parker.
Everyone finds out in Spider-Man Far From Home, but before they do, Mysterio plus the other members of his team learn of Peter's identity when he tricks Parker into giving him Tony's glasses. We don't actually learn how Nick Fury learns that Peter Parker is Spider-Man in the movie universe, but he's Nick Fury. He keeps both eyes open. Although we can assume he was the one who passed this knowledge on to Talos and Soren to keep their eyes on him when Pete went on holiday. Dimitri, aka the Chameleon, is a member of Nick Fury's crew and therefore is in the know about Peter being Spider-Man. And Michelle Jones-Watson, who's an original character created for Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies, learns that Peter is Spider-Man when she just asks him and he's like,
I am Spider-Man?
The Civil War comic has one of the most notable panels in history when Peter Parker reveals his identity to the world at a press conference as a way to get more supers to sign the Registration Act. As he is known to be the most secretive about their identity, Tony Stark thought it would help the cause if Spider-Man showed who he was under the mask. In the MCU, the entire public learned when Quentin Beck sent video footage of Peter Parker to J. Jonah, Jimmy, Jason, Jackson, Jordan, Jasmine, Julian, Josephine, Jessica Jameson Jr., who broadcast it to the world on his Daily Bugle channel. What the When Electro was in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, he was the first on-screen villain not to learn that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. However, both characters returned in No Way Home, where they had a moment together.
I just thought you was gonna be black.
But since these occurrences, the public has forgotten his identity. In the comics, it occurred in the One More Day story arc, where Peter makes a deal with Mephisto to save his critically injured aunt in exchange for Peter and Mary Jane's happiness, erasing their marriage and making Spider-Man's identity a secret to everyone again, except MJ. While everyone in the MCU forgot who Peter was during Spider-Man No Way Home, when Doctor Strange cast a spell to forget who he is in order to prevent the multiverse from collapsing. However, since the memory wipe, there are some characters who relearned his secret. Clint Bunn, Carol Danvers, Jessica Drew, Bucky Barnes, Luke Cage, Logan, Bobby Morse, Jessica Jones, and Danielle Cage all learnt that Peter Parker is Spider-Man in New Avengers 51 when he decided to unmask to his team. This reveal means nothing to most of them, but the very Marvel named Jessica Jones went to high school together, and she had a crush on him. Then Doctor Strange finds out in the next issue when he pops up. The Fantastic Four relearn in Amazing Spider-Man 591, voluntarily taking his mask off to the team he's fought alongside many times. Julia Carpenter uses her Madam Web powers to know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Peter's then girlfriend Charlie Cooper, who has a very Marvel name, figures it out at the end of the Spider Island comic arc, because despite everyone having spider powers, he was somehow the best, therefore must be the original. A maskless Spider-Man bumps into Steve Rogers in Avenging Spider-Man 5. Miles Morales learns in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse when the knowledge of Spider-Man's identity is revealed to the world after Peter Parker's death by the hands of Kingpin. In 2012's Spider-Man, 616's Spider-Man gets teleported into the Ultimate Universe where he's interrogated by Nick Fury before introducing him to Miles Morales. As Mysterio is behind this whole multiverse mess, he discovers Peter's secret during this run too. Otto Octavius switched minds with Spider-Man aka Peter Parker in 2012, which spun off into Superior Spider-Man. Peter and his sister, who may or may not actually be his sister, Teresa Parker, are struck by an explosion in 2013's Amazing Spider-Man Family Business. This causes Pete's overclothes to tear away, revealing his Spidey suit. Anna Maria Marconi dated Peter Parker when Otto Octavius had control of his body, but when that was all reversed, she came clean to Peter in 2014's Amazing Spider-Man issue 1 that she knew the truth, because he and Spider-Man had the same 3 freckles under their belly button. Cindy Moon, aka Silk, who was bitten by the same radioactive spider as Peter, learned through Ezekiel Sims in 2014's Amazing Spider-Man 2, comic not movie, then reveals this knowledge while kissing him in issue 5. Ghost Spider learns during the Spider-Verse event, like all the other Spider variants in either this or another Spider-Verse run, and the same is true for her in the Spider-Verse movie. Hobie Brown had impersonated and helped Spider-Man in the past, but I don't think he ever learned who was under the mask. However, in 2015's The Amazing Spider-Man issue 1, Peter hires Hobie to wear his suit while at Parker Industries events so that no one gets suspicious if there's an incident and Peter suddenly leaves. Carmack of the Inhumans knows in Peter Parker The Spectacular Spider-Man 3 from 2017, Gwendolyn Poole is a unique character being from our universe sucked into the comic universe, so she knows everyone's secret identities, as explained in Unbelievable Gwenpool 20. J. Jonah, Jimmy, Jason, Jackson, Jordan, Jasmine, Jordan, Josephine, Jessica Jameson Jr. relearns in Peter Parker The Spectacular Spider-Man issue 6, when Peter empathizes with Jay and decides to share his secret to end their long-standing rivalry. I don't think it's ever explicitly stated that the very Marvel named Robbie Robertson knows of Peter's secret, but like this moment in Spider-Man 2, it's heavily implied both before and after One More Day in the comics.
I heard Spider-Man was there. Where were you?
Loki spies on Peter with his Sorcerer Supreme magic powers in Amazing Spider-Man 795. In Amazing Spider-Man 797, J. Jonah, Jimmy, Jason, Jackson, Jordan, Jasmine, Jordan, Josephine, Jessica Jameson Jr. accidentally helps Norman Osborn piece the clues back together, then Flash Thompson reveals to have known in The Amazing Spider-Man 800. Normie Osborn, Harry Osborn and Liz Allen's son, learns around this time as well. Neither Toby's nor Andrew's Flash Thompson discovers that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but Tom's figures it out when the rest of the world does. In Spider-Man Deadpool 35, the life model decoy reassembled by Peter Parker's parents, Master Matrix, who has a very Marvel name, knows who's under the red and blue Spider-Man mask. Spider-Man tried to reveal his identity to Sandman in Peter Parker The Spectacular Spider-Man 308 just before he died, but Flink Marko told him not to take it off. In Spider-Man 3, the pair open their souls to one another at the end. While Peter doesn't exactly say his name, Flint at least knows that he's the nephew of Ben Parker, so he must have either searched it up online or had another interaction between this movie and Spider-Man No Way Home, because he says Peter by name in that film.
Peter, it's me!
Kindred seems to know in 2018's Amazing Spider-Man issue 1, the Black Cat has a better reaction to Peter voluntarily revealing his identity to her the second time in 2017's Amazing Spider-Man 10. There's a rumor that the rumor knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, as seen in 2019's Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man issue 2. How does she know? Well, as Peter's neighbor, he once helped carry her heavy groceries, which made her suspicious, then set up cameras outside his window and saw him swing away. Super smart, super Marvel named Lunella Louise Lafayette, aka Moon Girl, calls Spider-Man Peter Parker as she's an expert on Omniwave technology, allowing her to explore and monitor alternate realities, where she explains that in many of these universes, Spider-Man's identity as Peter Parker is public, so it was an educated guess that this universe would have a Peter Parker Spider-Man as well. After one more day, Venom once again bonded with Spider-Man, before once again bonding with Eddie Brock, who therefore learned that Parker is Spider-Man. But he doesn't reveal this to him until 2019's Absolute Carnage issue 1. Plus Eddie's son Dylan is with him when this happens, so he knows too. Also, Dylan's worn the Venom symbiote as well. Spider-Man is the Hulk in 2020's Immortal Hulk Great Power, so therefore the Hulk knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Elsa Bloodstone sees a maskless Spider-Man in Crypt of Shadows issue 1, but doesn't recognize the face or know he's Peter Parker. That's the same for Kraven in 2022's Amazing Spider-Man 35. The very Marvel named Marcus Monplaisir sees a maskless Spider-Man in 2022's Amazing Spider-Man 93, as does the very Marvel named Crystal Cadwini in 2023's Deadly Neighborhood Spider-Man 5. The Queen Goblin knows in Gold Goblin issue 2, Nightcrawler knows in Uncanny Spider-Man 5, Siv's eyes see all, and as Spider-Man is one of her favourites, she knows his secret, something which she told to Thor, who he told to Peter in Thor's 2023 annual comic. Kamala Khan's Miss Marvel learns in 2023's Amazing Spider-Man 26 as she dies in Peter's arms, knowing who he is because they worked together. But you're never gonna believe this. Marvel did the unprecedented and resurrected the character, only for Spider-Man to remove his mask to her 5 issues later as a thank you for that heroic act that got her killed. And I think that's everyone who knows.
What about me? You will never learn.
Keep in mind, these are just the characters who exist in the movie and main 616 comic universe. But thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments who your favourite reveal was, and don't forget to absolutely obliterate that like, subscribe and share button. I'm just kidding. Only do it with enough force that it registers. I don't want any of you breaking whatever device you're watching this on.